along with my amazing team, Matt Argandiza, Michelangelo Bendandi, and Paolo Catherine Rodriguez. We welcome everybody here tonight for this very important discussion, conversation. We want it to be a conversation. We want it to be a night where people can ask questions, people can learn, people can come with takeaways. The Green Family Foundation has been very invested in immigrant rights for many, many years. We've been working with Americans for Immigrant Justice for many years, and I know they're here tonight. We have Sui, we have Arthur, and a few other people. Matt's going to introduce everyone, but I'm just pointing out who Green Family Foundation has been working with Human Rights Watch. We're so excited to see all of your faces here tonight. It's a somber conversation. It's one that's very needed. I'm happy to see this turnout. I feel that we're all in this place of uncertainty. We're in a place of what do we do? How do we do it? What type of action can we take? Where are our resources? Who can we turn to? Tonight we'll hear from some incredible activists in this community who are not only invested in this community, but are invested in the people and are invested in our future. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot tonight, and I can't thank Matt Anderson enough and Mosaic for putting this together. I'm introducing Matt right now. Everybody knows him, formerly at MCCJ. Matt Anderson is the executive director of Mosaic. And thank you, Matt, for putting this together.
So, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, welcome to This Is Home. Kimberly, thank you for being an amazing partner. The work that GreenSpace does at the intersection of art and dialogue is crucial for today. My name is Matt Anderson, and I'm Mosaic Miami's executive director. Before we get into it, I'd like to ground us and allow us to pause for a moment of silence. It's been a heavy week for us as Miamians for many reasons. Our community's treasures, Dave and Bobby Lawrence, lost their two granddaughters, Hannah and Rebecca, at Camp Mystic in Texas. And let's open our hearts for those others who also lost loved ones there, and also for those that are feeling hurt and sadness in this really complicated time. So, quick moment of silence. Thank you. So, Mosaic Miami, for 90 years, has been our community's village square, a place where people connect, share ideas, learn, and find true facts. And oftentimes, in this village square, we disagree. But amongst all the information that we receive at such a fast speed, we need to hold on to this village square, because we have to hold this information accountable. No matter what, we have to bring compassion and truth back. We're all immigrants. I'm the product of a Haitian and Bahamian family, and this situation hurts me at my core. And no matter who we are in Miami, we can't run away from this issue. So that's why tonight's town hall is so important. And in order to make this conversation impactful, we need three significant elements. One, we need a panel of thought leaders that are willing to put themselves out there and get real and talk about the work that they're doing in the trenches. The second thing we need is a group of civic-minded individuals that are willing to show up on a Friday to ask intelligent questions and to share their thoughts. And the third thing we need is a family conversation. And I think we have all those elements here tonight. When Kimberly and I thought about putting this presentation together a few months ago, we thought of the natural best panel of people to come together that you're going to hear from tonight. And we are so lucky to have Jackie Charles, the Miami Herald's Haiti and Caribbean contributor, to serve as the captain of this journey tonight. And I'd like to invite Jackie and the panelists to come up, and Jackie will get this party started.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So before I was the Miami Herald's Haiti and Caribbean correspondent, I was actually an immigration reporter for the Herald. So and lately, because of all of the policies, we've all had to go back into the immigration coverage. And I'm going to just sort of give you some context, and I'm going to introduce our panelists, because it's just been dizzying. You know, every day there is some new rule or policy or change that's happening in the administration as far as immigration is concerned. And, you know, the purpose tonight isn't necessarily to give you a legal, you know, education on what's happening, but really just to bring it down to the level of the community. And I've already started to hear stories, and that's what we're interested in terms of how these policies are affecting you, or affecting your loved ones, or affecting people you may have who work for you, and ultimately to see what the potential or what the real life, you know, impact is going to be here in South Florida, which is a very diverse community, and is feeling it from all sides. So we know that since taking office, President Donald Trump has pushed, you know, to limit access to federal benefits for immigrants who lack legal status. He sought to revoke citizenship of naturalized individuals who commit crimes, and is working to end birthright citizenship for children born to those who are undocumented or who are visiting. He has also ended immigration protections for beneficiaries of temporary protected status. So we're talking about individuals from Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, and also Biden-era beneficiaries of humanitarian parole, which also encompasses these 4 countries. And these 4 countries happen to be the countries in our region of this hemisphere that today have their biggest in crisis in terms of political instability, potentially mass migration, as well as the insecurity crisis and humanitarian. And while he's doing all of this, he has called on U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to deliver on his promise of carrying out the single largest mass deportation in U.S. history. The shifting immigration policies are having a ripple effect on households, not just immigrants, but also, you know, legalized Americans and permanent residents. And yet, there's a Gallup poll that the Washington Post just broke a story on earlier today that talks about the fact that 8 in 10 Americans, nearly 80%, say immigration is a good thing for the country. It's an increase from 64% a year ago. How does that break down? Basically, Democrats, they haven't changed their opinion. They still believe in immigrants and immigration. But 2/3 of Republicans now say immigrants are a good thing, while 80% of independents now hold that opinion, up from 2/3 a year ago. In South Florida, where we've been shaped by a diverse wave of migration, we want to have this dialogue, as I mentioned earlier, and look at how this is playing out here. We're going to hear from individuals who come in contact every day with those who are undocumented, or those who are afraid, or those who are the relatives. They may be, you know, children born to undocumented migrants, or children who are considered dreamers, those who came here as youngsters and they lack legal status. We also want to invite you, before our discussion is over, to share with us your stories, your experiences. You know, what's happening in your world? Do you have caretakers taking care of an elderly parent What are they saying in terms of, are they comfortable? Are they afraid to go to a hospital? How is that affecting your everyday life? Helping us to explore this, we have experts in this domain, as well as they're also leading voices on the front lines of immigrant justice and advocacy. So to begin, we have Chung, Executive Director, Americans for Immigrant Justice. Gaby Pacheco, CEO of the Dream US, which is a college and career success program for undocumented immigrant students. Gypsy Methodist, Executive Director of Santla Haitian Neighborhood Center. And Dr. Raul Hernandez, Resident Immigration Specialist at Coral Gables Congregational United Church of Christ. Thank you guys for joining us today. And I wanted to start this conversation with each of you to just give us from your advantage point. You guys are representing people who find themselves in detention or who are being picked up. What is it that you're seeing, and then we will take the conversation from there.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's really extraordinary to see all of you here today on a Friday, engaging so deeply. I want to thank Matt and Kimberly for really creating this for us, creating this space for us, and Kimberly creating this vision of social activism, the beauty of art, and how that all intersects, ways that we can really, really engage and go deeper into how we want to communicate with one another, and I'm very grateful for her leadership there. Thank you, Kimberly. So I think that first and foremost, what we're seeing right now in the news is very breaking. There's so many topics that we brainstormed, workshopped. There's so many elements of what has happened. Really, we saw it coming as a hurricane descending upon us from the election results onward, into going to the inauguration. There was certain types of messaging, what our communities were about to face. And when we were preparing for this panel, there's so many elements, so much nuance, and so many different, we've evolved so much in a really fast way on what's happening on the landscape. But what I want to focus on in my comments just right now is what's happening in the Everglades right now. We're using the term alligator Alcatraz. I'm encouraging everyone to remove yourself from that language. It's very ugly language. The pictures of alligators with ice hats. This is to make light, to make fun of immigrants and what's happening. We've seen nothing like this before. Whatever you are reading, whatever you're seeing, it is a lot worse than that. We don't know who's there, we can't gain access, there's no information. We've been operating in systems that have become incredibly chaotic without any legal construction, but those are systems that we can try to patch together, that we can somewhat know how to operate in, whether it's Chrome, whether it's the Federal Detention Center. Right now, the individuals that have been placed in the Everglades, we can't find them. They're disappeared people. And I came in tonight and I told Kimberly, if all of us are taken, nobody will be able to find you. There's no element of tracking right now. People are disappeared. So people are being disappeared to El Salvador. They're being disappeared to South Sudan. It's happening now in our country. People are disappeared right now. So we have to really be thinking about that really thoughtfully, carefully, because what we do know is we should have access to counsel. We should be able to call our loved ones. We can build a defense. These are just concepts that we've known in the United States, and that's why this is supposed to be a first world nation. We've crossed the line right now, and I thought we crossed the line weeks ago, months ago. We've truly crossed the line, and I can't emphasize enough just how scary it is right now. And we have to stay strong, and we have to resist this continuing to happen. There's reports that this is going to continue to happen throughout the country. Unfortunately, we are right now the lead in this very ugly narrative. We are the superstars right now in Florida. So as Floridians, as Miamians, we really have to stand up right now and show the country we're not going to do this. We're not going to go in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to come back. when I'm reading the stuff about college students, my head is just spinning. From students who are erasing their social media profile or posts that they've had, to the fact that students who are undocumented were able to go to college and now not able to what's happened at FIU in terms of participating or assisting with ICE. What are you seeing in regards to here in Florida and the students that you work with?
My thanks also to the people that brought us together and to every single one of you. I look out here and I see the beauty in our community. I see what holds me and gives me the energy to do this work, and it's all of you. And so I want to say thank you. It's been a really challenging week. It's been really, really tough. And things are getting worse and worse. And I told myself in November, I'm a warrior. I have been fighting this and being prepared for the next, for what's happening. I've been doing this for 20 years. And really, I don't think my mind, my heart and soul is prepared for what we're gonna see. And I know, so we just shared a little bit of it, but it is going to get worse. And we've been sounding the alarm, and I think people at first were like, okay, these people are exaggerating, it's hyperbole. It's not. And you know, when we were hearing people talking about Project 2025, it was really just not something that anybody could think how organized and orchestrated all these things were gonna be. And now we're seeing it come to fruition in a way that it's truly frightening and scary. So in-state tuition in the state of Florida took decades to be able to win. We won in-state tuition because the Lieutenant Governor, FIU President at the time, Representative Jeanette Nunez, was the one that championed in 2014 this bill and went around telling the senators that you cannot punish the children for the sins of their parents, and we have to act like good Christians and support this bill. 10 years then after that, she's telling everybody these children are a burden to our society. We cannot afford to continue to educate them. And we know today that she is making close to $1 million. As the FIU president, we know today that she has colluded and worked together with the governor to bring in what is called the 287G agreements, which now will deputize campus police to be able to, in essence, act as ICE agents. And in a board meeting, her board member, chair, which we know is responsible and is the contractor for the concentration camp that was built in a matter of weeks in the Everglades, is the one responsible for it. So we see the coordination, right? We know that the Florida Atlantic University president is also the former GEO Group vice president. If you don't know what the GEO Group is, it's one of the biggest worldwide agencies that are in the stock market, that their number one thing that they do is prisons, private prisons. They make so much money every single time we see this enforcement because it costs money. It costs the taxpayers anywhere between $200 to $300 to hold an immigrant in detention, being fed maggots and sandwiches, not being allowed to take showers, not being allowed their due process. And so it's scary because our students, we have learned that there's actually one individual today that is a DACA recipient. So Dreamers are also not safe. And it's really sad because on my birthday, on January 28th, I was sitting outside while my family was waiting for me. I was watching as the vote came in, where it repealed the in-state tuition legislation. And though there was some Republicans that were saying, this is wrong, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this to children? Why are we taking away something that we know that it's good for us? They went full force, and we know that Danny Perez was working with the White House to directly put forward what they called the Trump Act. So to say, that the orchestration, we know that today also the Department of Justice in Texas sued, and on June 1st, we all took a sigh of relief because we said we beat this desire once again to delete or repeal in-state tuition in Texas, and yet again, the Department of Justice came in 3 days later, sued. Within 6 hours and 10 minutes, they had, the Attorney General had collaborated with them, picked a judge that said, yeah, I agree with you, in-state tuition is gone. Who cares what the legislature said? Who cares what the Texans said? We're doing this. And so right now there's 3 similar lawsuits, one in Kentucky and one in Minnesota. And we're seeing little by little how they are lawlessly going after policies and laws that are in our Constitution, and they don't care. And we are seeing citizens getting arrested, we're seeing residents getting arrested, we're seeing students. I had a student who was driving from Utah to Colorado, was stopped by the police. In Colorado, it is against the law for the police to share information. This police officer asked a student, you have an accent. Proceeded to say, where are you from? And when she said Utah, he said, no, where are you really from? And got the information from her, which you have the right to remain silent. Remember your rights. But she informed the police officer that she was from Brazil. He proceeded to write this on a Signal chat that ICE was part of. 20 minutes after releasing her, ICE stopped her, detained her, and she was put in detention center. A 19-year-old with a driver's license, with a valid work authorization, and going through an immigration process, a valid immigration process, 15 days in detention. So this is what we are experiencing all across the country. We have another student that received a $40,000 bond in New Jersey that was detained. His brother was detained, and his mom and sister, on a Sunday after going to church. They broke into their car's window to take him out. This is what we're seeing every single day and what we're hearing, and some of it we hear on the news. Some of the stuff is just too much, and I know that it's getting to a point where we're kind of becoming desensitized from it, but I think it's really important that we remember that all of this that's happening right now is wrong. And if they're doing it to our children, if they're doing it to immigrants, if they're doing it to green card holders, if they're doing it to citizens, they're gonna do it to you too. And so I think it's really important, and I know that we shouldn't be driven by, oh, it can happen to me, so I have to protect myself, right? It should be, this is wrong that this is happening to our neighbors. But I really want to just highlight, right, and say this is not us, sounding the alarm because we want to cause and be sensationalist. That's the last thing we need for our community. We do not want to be part of the machine that scares our community. But this is the facts and this is the reality, and it's just terrifying that this is where we're at. And again, I just want to say thank you, because this is really important, and it fills my soul that you are here tonight.
Thank you. Gypsy, we have more than 500 million Haitians who have they're either in TPS or they came during the Biden era to take advantage of the humanitarian parole program. A lot of them are professionals. They've been forced out of their homes by armed gangs. So take us into a day at Santala. What are you guys dealing with? What are people coming and saying and asking you, and how are you addressing that?
Thank you, Jackie. First, thanks to Matt Anderson of Mosaic Miami for gathering us like this. Thank you, Kim, for hosting us, and thank each and every one of you for being here. And of course, thanks to the colleagues here. So, okay.
You got it. Yeah. We got you.
Okay.
Jackie, you set me up.
Sorry.
So, oh my God. We are all crying with you. So I walked in raw, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna pretend. I'm not gonna try to be the face of hope for our team members. It's not that, our community members, our clients, because this is really overwhelming. So when you have, first, our team members have TPS. So every day, the reality of their uncertain future is staring you in the face. So we all do this, I guess this self-preserving thing where, okay, we're cheerful, we're embracing one another, we're loving one another, we're working hard because we're focused on community members. But when you remember that at least immediately you have two of your own who don't know what they're gonna do. And you have no answers. You have no answers, you can't really offer any hope. You can't provide concrete answers. And you want to not, thank you, Liam. Thank you, Liam. You want to not pretend because these team members are part of the team, the staff, they're doing this work, they're living the painful reality of clients who are also so overwhelmingly uncertain. They are afraid, they don't know what their next step will look like. They don't know what the next decision will be. They don't know, first they have no home to go to, right? Given the fact that in Haiti right now, as the United States State Department has advised American citizens to not travel to Haiti, has asked American citizens living or working in Haiti right now to come on home because the place isn't safe given the gang control and everything else that you've heard about. So this is what our clients are contemplating. Is this what I need to go back to? Because I have no home to go to. And again, we have no answers to that. And then there are, of course, these are people who came through the Biden humanitarian parole program, right? And then of course there are those who've had TPS since the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. And this TPS, temporary protected status, has been renewed, redesignated over several years because again, our State Department deemed the decision appropriate, deemed that Haiti was not safe, that these people's lives would be at risk, and that we'd be, as American people, would be dealing a death sentence to anyone that we repatriated right now. And so we, in that sense, we lived up to our values of being welcoming of folks who are seeking refuge on our shores, right? But then these very people who were promised temporary protected status, formal promise, right, legal promise, are now being told that this promise is being yanked away. And this is, these are individuals, families who have lived and worked legally in the United States, have had children who are US born children, who are US citizens, have raised their children who have become our community's next generation of professionals, of leaders, right? Who are probably, out there, you don't recognize them, but they're out there, you run into them in this community. And so these folks, again, are grappling with the fact that they need to figure out what to do with their assets because many have purchased homes and invested in business opportunities, have done the kinds of things that we refer to as the American dream. And so right now they're trying to figure out how to divest themselves of these assets and what to do with their children, especially those children who are US born. Because none of us, not one of us in this room, would want to take our child into homeschool. We would not want to take our children into a situation where you didn't have a home to go back to. And even if you did, you were not certain that you would get there safely. And even if you got there safely, you would not be sure that you would survive a day, a week, or even a month. And so the stress, the trauma, the pain, the disappointment, the frustration, the fear, I think I said fear already, the fear, the pain, all of those feelings are erupting in our community members, and so they're so afraid still that you're not seeing or hearing about their feelings. But we, who are supposed to be the face of hope for these families, for these individuals, we know what's happening. We know what's happening. Just today, in a staff retreat, we were talking about the need to prepare to support the families who are gonna have to go back to Haiti, no matter what happens. Families that who have relatives in Canada and maybe have an option to move to Canada because there's a family member there who's able and willing to sponsor them there. There are families opting to return to Brazil, which was probably the country that welcomed them immediately after the 2010 earthquake. There are others who are contemplating Chile. And so people are sort of trying to just figure out what else can I do, because going back to Haiti is not an option. It's not an option. It's not an option. So we're trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to help folks pay, airline tickets? How are we going to help them get passports? How are we going to help them to get the kinds of the basic things that they need in order to return? We even thought about, okay, let's do a backpack drive, because we don't want people to be put on a plane with nothing and land in Haiti trying to figure out, okay, now what is next for me? And so this conversation this evening is an opportunity, I think, for all of us to just let it out. Let it out, hoping that each and every one of you is here will understand what's going on, will demonstrate your solidarity with our communities, and will, I guess, become part of our support system. Because I tell you, I don't, on top of everything else you've heard, I can't say anymore that I believe in the Bill of Rights. I can't say anymore that our country is a place where where freedom of speech is guaranteed. I can't say that I believe in any of our fundamental rights. Because I don't know if, when I drive home tonight, if some police officer who doesn't like the fact that I have an afro or something stops me, and what would be my faith? And Gaby said it's happening to our immigrant communities, it's true, but remember, it can happen to each and every one of us. Each and every one of us can go through this. Thank you.
Dr. Hernandez, you all are also seeing this. Can you talk about those that are living on the margins and how is the faith community coping with all of this?
Thank you. Thank you, Matt, and your entire staff for doing this. If any one of you at times have felt overwhelmed for the last few months, congratulations, you are paying attention. The idea we see these folks who come to our church weekly because we have a small food bank, and we have seen that sometimes they are afraid. They need the food, but they don't want to come up because they're afraid of all things the police. They are afraid they're going to be picked up and sent out and separated from families. So we've seen all these, if there were mental health issues before, Now all of them are worse because people feel isolated at home, they don't want to get out. They feel afraid of even their neighbors. They stop coming to church. We saw these Catholic bishops, one of the Catholic bishops in California, just putting out a notice saying that there is a total dispensation indefinitely to come to the former obligation for Sunday Mass because they're justified of their fear because they're going to be picked up and deported. And still, all my professional life in the US for the last 45 years have been based on the law and procedures and order and yes, the rule of law and yes, due process. And we see that due process in America today is in life support. And what happened is, no matter how overwhelmed we are, I feel that we have the obligation and the privilege to speak for those who are unable to do it today. And when people ask me at church, there was this guy last month, grown up man, crying, literally crying, because he had an immigration hearing, he has a photo of deportation, and his only way to get a work permit is to attend every year to the audio supervision appointment. And he just told me, what can I do? Because I'm not going to my appointment. I'm going to be detained, I'm going to be deported. And he doesn't even qualify for a shelter because he has no status anymore. So it's like the end of the road for these folks. So I live under a totalitarian regime. I escaped with my life as a refugee. And I know dictatorship in my bones. And it is not just coming, we have it. And at this point, we don't have the luxury to wait for the midterm elections to do something. We have to do it today. We have to do it yesterday, and we have to keep doing it because, as Reverend Barber said, a king is not a king if you don't bow to him. And it's typically him. Typically is a guy. So they live in this aura of no matter what you do, this is the way it is. And they create this atmosphere of total power, and you are impotent. And I'm here to tell you that aura of no matter what you do is a lie, and we cannot allow them to keep that lie, because we have a voice, and we have the obligation to show up every day, make the call, make the visit, go out to the elected officials that voted for this abomination of a law recently and tell them, I don't agree. You represent me, you work for me, you are the person who you have the obligation to see for my well-being and that of my family, and not just to stay forever in a position of power. So I hear you when you say that hope is perhaps scarce, but there is the hope that we need to go out and speak for those who have no voice today. And I intend to keep doing it.
Let me go through one more round, and I want to hear from the audience, because I think that there's more interaction when I hear when you ask the questions or you share some of your own anecdotes of what you're going through. Sui, as an immigration reporter, and I remember early in my career, there was the law that we had access to Chrome, and You had to do due process. But as I'm listening to the panelists and as I'm thinking about the stories that we've written, it seems like the law books don't even matter. And I'm just wondering, as a lawyer, as an immigration lawyer today, I mean, do you have some hope? Do you, how are you navigating this?
So it is incredibly complicated right now. You know, I want to just build upon what has already been said in constructions that have been mentioned that we knew and understood. Individuals were invited on CHNB parole, meaning everything was good to go. You're allowed to be here. You have permission. Everything is in order. And suddenly that's been taken away. Individuals that have applied for asylum now are walking out of court and being given expedited orders of removal, being arrested. So these are individuals who did absolutely everything correctly. So, you know, in your lifetimes, think about the processes that you've done. You've done everything right, and it's a bait and switch on you. You've come and you've accessed a system that us as a nation also agree to in terms of certain human rights standards and the ability to apply for certain elements of protection, and that's now been just, the rug has been pulled out. So people are going to court dressed in their best, prepared their testimonies. I always tell people it's really incredible. Every respondent that goes before court, I don't know how they do it. You are just exposed, completely naked, having to tell your story, the trauma, everything about you, you're looked at, your credibility is questioned. I could not do it myself. I couldn't do it. I'm too weak. I wouldn't be able to do it. Individuals who are going to court right now with their children, with their family, exposing themselves this way, they've done everything right, and we're telling them that they have not, that they shouldn't have been in this process, that they didn't deserve this process. So it is really, right now, this moment in time, we haven't honored the past. We haven't honored what we've given people. Talking about even individuals who are on orders of supervision that Raul mentioned, Cubans who have been here 20 years, 25 years, checking in every year, building businesses, families, grandchildren, everything, doing everything they're supposed to, having work authorization. Now, if they walk in, they don't know if they're going to be sent to South Sudan. So we're having a very different conversation now, where the prior Trump administration, we said, okay, well, the Cubans, they're okay. They're on their orders of supervision. We're having a completely different conversation right now. Nobody is safe right now. So the construction of what has occurred on the legal landscape is really unbelievable. Just the changes have been tremendous, and what we've known and how we've been able to advocate, we just don't know if it's going to work anymore. So this goes back to what I was talking about with the Everglades camp. It is that we can't access people. The system that we know how to find people on an ICE locator, us being able to look for people in the court system, they're not there. So, Jackie, when you ask me how has it changed, it's changed in that everything is chaos at this stage. And what can we do? We just have to persist. We have to keep going forward. We have to be able to find mechanisms for legal challenge. I think probably many of you know and have read that there were so many firings in the federal government. So what we even knew as the judges adjudicating cases, or an oversight body we could make claims to because ICE was not listening to our complaints of detention conditions. All of this has been undone. So what have we needed to do as Americans for Immigrant Justice? We've needed to file reports with the United Nations, the UNHCR. The U.S. human rights record was under review from 2020. The window closed in April 2025, and we had to make a complaint because we have nowhere else to go right now. Our government is not listening to us. We're right now also looking at conditions with Human Rights Watch. My colleague is here. So we have to look at where can we go to find answers, because our government has failed us, unfortunately. They have failed us.
Gabby, I heard from you a sense of betrayal, like, to hear somebody who is a supporter, and then they basically flip the script on you guys. And yet, when the president started or on the campaign trail, he always set dreamers aside. And it seems that dreamers also are no longer immune from this. So what are you advising, and do you see a potential for activism here?
So let's just be clear that Donald Trump is just a puppet and it's a figure. And behind him is actually all the different folks who are there. So even if he was no longer in office, right, it is a movement, it is an ideology that is in the White House and that are pulling the strings. And we see it very clearly because one day he tweets and puts something out saying, we're not gonna go after farm workers and those in constructions and yada, yada, yada. And then you hear Stephen Miller have a fit, and then the next day, the president says, psych, no, we are gonna do this, et cetera, right? And so it's the same with dreamers. And one of the things, and this is where I believe you confront these people, you talk to these people, you set up meetings with these people. I've actually confronted both Stephen Miller and my good friend back there, and I actually met with Donald Trump. And he remembers this meeting, and he says, I've met with dreamers. And so I think that, that has been really important. And the fact is that the dreamer brand, right, has been really, really crucial and important in this nation, that when you go around and you say dreamer, you know exactly what you're talking about. A couple of weeks ago, it was a question of Jeopardy, right? They said, what is the nickname that you call DACA recipients? What is dreamers, right? And so I think that has been really important, and us being able to speak out and continuously, and I know, one time last year, I was doing a podcast, and she was saying, what should people do? And I said, well, it starts at home. And there's this notion that, oh no, we don't talk about politics or religion in our household, our dining table, because that's a big no. And I'm like, no, that's exactly where it starts. That's exactly where these conversations need to be. And we need to be having conversations where it's not about trying to be right. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, it's not the big club. You're not here to try to win a trophy. You're here to understand, to be understood, and to ask questions. And so for the dreamers, I think, and for the young people, I do think there is an opportunity for activism and people to activate as advocates. But it's not on the dreamers, because it is, I am deadly afraid that I became a United States citizen in June of 2023, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. I threw myself the Wedding of American party on July 4th, okay? That's how much it meant to me, right? I worked 30 years since I came to this country to be able to have that. And I have panic attacks. I had to go to London for a conference, and I was like, I don't wanna go. Because what if something happens when I come back in, and they look at my passport and I'm a naturalized citizen, and they're telling us they will take citizenship away from citizens. And so I think it really is going to be up to other people, right, that have more security. I think it starts with members of Congress, and we are seeing already them being stopped and detained in handcuffs. But it really is going to take for other people to come and stand with us side by side. I have loved our institutions of higher learning. I am the product of our amazing public school system and Miami-Dade College, and I spent all of my time at the Green Library at FIU, right? That's where I studied. But these institutions are turning their backs on our students. And we are, I'm sure that if I ask how many of you went to FIU, there will be a lot of hands raised. And how many of you are still alumni and supporting, right? And that you can send a message and say, no, this is wrong. What you are doing, it's wrong. How can you, in the middle of the semester, we have students, we have over 600 students today that we're desperately trying to find ways to transfer them out of FIU because it's not safe. Because we know that they want to use the data with this 287G agreement to find not just the dreamer, but the families. I experienced that in 2006. ICE came to my home at 6 in the morning and knocked on the door looking for me. And they took my parents and my sisters, and I've experienced what that is. I've experienced an ICE agent tell me when I tried to say section 2.0, trying to be all smart, of the law states, and he laughed in my face and said, we are the law. We make the law. And that was 2006. What we're seeing is people that are on steroids. We're seeing the lawlessness, the lack of care, the joy of seeing the fear, the terrorizing of community members. And so I do see an opportunity, I see an invitation, I see a plea for people to use their voice. And it doesn't have to be, going out there and standing in front of a bus that is coming in with individuals that are going to be put in that detention center. But it's using your wallet, it's using your voice. There's so many different ways. I wrote a post that actually kind of went viral on LinkedIn. For the 4th of July weekend, I decided that I was going to take a couple of days off. And of course, I get sick, and I head to the urgent care in the ER. And here I am at Baptist Hospital, and one of the questions I get asked is, were you born in the United States of America? And I said, I'm not gonna answer that, right? And those are little tiny resistance and things that we need to do, right? That help other people, that help your neighbors, that help yourself, right? Why does it matter if I was born in the United States of America or not? When I'm in pain, when I need medical attention. So for the young people, the Dream.us is doing everything we can. We have young people that are afraid to leave their homes, that are looking for online classes. We have young people who moved from Miami to Orlando to go to UCF and no longer have access. We have tons of people with TPS that are desperate and don't know what to do because they're gonna lose their jobs, they're gonna lose their livelihood, they're gonna lose their hope. And so I do think, right, and I ask and I invite you to find everyday things that you can do to resist what we're seeing and speak up. And I know every single one of us has family members that voted for Donald Trump and believe, right, that this was the way. We live in Miami, come on now, right? So, and probably, statistically speaking, I'm not gonna call you out, but there's people here that probably voted for Trump, reality, and it's okay. We're going to work against that, and I do believe that people can be lied to and are maybe here listening and learning, and we need you. This is an invitation to just human beings, to help other human beings in this current totalitarian period that our country is in.
Thank you. I'm going to put you both on the spot. Because we are a diverse community, right? And the very communities that are being most affected by these immigration laws, they're here in South Florida, and we represent them, we're part of that. So Gypsy, 2 questions for you. One, well, both of you. What are you finding in terms of support for your advocacy to help immigrants? And then the second question for each of you is in terms of your individual communities. Gypsy, I feel this void in the Haitian community. I don't see an activism. I know a few who did voted, and you know, and I know that people have very complex feelings about certain programs, but it just seems like they're just waiting or not doing anything. And then also with Dr. Hernandez, I mean, when I saw the City of Miami recent vote, two things stood out to me. Not just the fact that the members of the council who voted had Hispanic surnames, but that the people who spoke out against it did not have Hispanic surnames. So for there was a little bit of hope in terms of other people recognizing in Miami and what Miami represents and says that we can't do this. But where do you all see an activism? I almost feel like a defeatist, but everybody's been saying, where are the leaders, where's the community, why are people not being more vocal about this? And then we'll open it up to the audience.
So, you know, I don't think that, well, let me rephrase it. I think if you're not hearing the strong voices, the strong advocates in the Haitian community, it is, I would say, because everyone is just afraid. You're afraid of what to say. You're afraid that if you speak out because you feel safe in your citizenship, that some relative or family member who is still either a permanent resident or has TPS or is a humanitarian parolee could be victimized. And so again, you know that TikTok is out there. It is fueling a very healthy rumor mill in the Haitian community. And so there's all sorts of information and disinformation sort of penetrating and permeating all the spaces in our community. And so, yes, you're right that we've been quiet, but I think I'm hopeful. I'm seeing step by step people say, no, we cannot be paralyzed by fear. We've got to stand up for those who cannot stand up right now. We need allies who can stand up for us or with us. We need people who mean well, who are decent, such as members of this audience, who will reach out to their elected officials and speak their minds and say no to this and that policy and otherwise. So I think we were slowly getting back to the rhythm of fighting back as we, you know, the Haitian community in South Florida, 50 years plus strong, we have a trajectory of just fighting for every single immigration victory that we've earned, right? Immigration policies vis-a-vis Haitians has always been schizophrenic, right? Today, this is the policy, but when Haitians are in line to benefit from that same policy, suddenly there's a change in plan. And so 50 years in this community has taught me that that's been our trajectory, that's been our reality. And so, and of course there's lots of emergencies, right? While we should be on the streets protesting, while we should be on the streets rallying, we should be doing all of that, we're also trying to take care of someone who's facing the reality of needing to move back to Haiti. And so competing priorities, that's not an excuse, because I know that we've cut our teeth on fighting for what is right, what are our rights, what is due to us. And so I know we'll continue to do that, right? And tomorrow, sooner rather than later, because the way is to, you know, take us back to that poem, you know, first they came for the trade unionists. Since I was not a trade unionist, I didn't say anything. Then they came for the communists. I wasn't a communist, so I didn't do anything about it. Then they came for the Jews. Then they came for the undocumented, right, or the TPS or DACA recipients, and then the citizens, and that's all it is, right? And so, you know, we need to just get out of that feeling of being paralyzed, right? And again, there is a purpose, there is a strategy to paralyzing us. There's so much coming at us. There's so much coming at us from every angle, not just the immigrant or the immigration policy angle. There are social issues, right? There are cultural issues, there are economic issues. There's so much that we would need to clone ourselves to be able to deal with all that's being thrown at us. So I understand but I also know that I can't be relaxed right now. I can't say this and wait, right? So what was the other question?
Advocacy, are you finding support for your effort?
So I think the support for advocacy has always been there. We've got several major law firms throughout the country who have served as our advocates, either with district courts and even up to the Supreme Court, to fight back on the cancellation of TPS. And just recently we had a victory, just as we had a victory with the first Trump administration. So that's good. There are other advocates, and ACLU and other law firms that are challenging decisions and helping us to make our case. Because again, remember, everybody's busy trying to put out one fire or another. And so it's important that we're strategic. It's important that we organize and make sure that we orchestrate the plan of action such that each of us does what we do best in our own lane. So the advocacy is there, the support is there. There are many people in the community reaching out and saying, how can I help? We've had a couple of attorneys say to us, can we help your community members fill out a guardianship applications, or fill out powers of attorney to protect their assets. So that is part of advocacy, Jackie. And yes, we welcome that. There are other people who want to know how to help. And so we need to always be ready, SUI, right? To always be ready to tell people the one thing that they can do. Because there's always one thing that each and every one of us can do. So I leave it there and rely and count on you doing the one thing that you can in fact.
Dr. Hernandez? Yes.
When I met the great John Lewis, I was advocating for refugees and funding for refugee programs and welcoming those who are persecuted. The thing that impressed me the most was that the man was at peace. He's been through hell, but he was okay. He knew that he had done and fought the right fight. And at our congregation, we try to follow that example, live the teachings of the gospel, not just memorize Bible verses, but actually welcome the stranger, listen to him, her, all of them. Love your neighbor, no exceptions. Love your neighbor. Do the work. A bunch of trees had to die so we can print all these handouts or in the back. So make them worth it. And this is some of the things that we do every Sunday. Our Board of Justice and Witness has a table after the Sunday service. We have opportunities to work, to speak for, to learn, to hold hands, to build community. Because we are all in this. Thank you for what you said. Absolutely, everyone is connected. And we have the temptation when we see the news, like, well, I'm not documented, so I'm okay. Or, I have my passport set. But I'm carrying a copy of my US passport in my wallet these days, and I've been a citizen for 40 years. So I'm afraid, yes, I am, and I have an accent. Yes, I can be stopped, and they have good cause to search my car. So absolutely, yes, I'm afraid, but I refuse to bow down. And that's what our congregation tries to do every Sunday. We connect. We have all these resources that we share with some of the people around this panel and this room. And the thing we keep in mind every time is that there is always something you can do. Always, always. one demonstration, what good is going to do one demonstration? If I show up, what good does that make? Folks, courage is contagious. You show up and other people say, well, I can do that too. You raise your voice, yeah, I can also make a phone call. And you don't have to be an expert at the law or Supreme Court to say, I disagree with what you said. I disagree with your vote. I want you to vote this way. That's a very easy call. I'm your constituent. You work for me. It's important for me to hear, to know that what you're doing is something that's going to benefit me and my family and my community. So every little step helps. And the question is, we simply, we don't have the luxury to stop. We don't.
I want to just quickly mention that we did have a win recently, Americans for Immigrant Justice with the ACLU, with Community Justice Project. There's a very bad state bill, SB 4C, criminalizing individuals who entered the state of Florida without status. And we have an injunction in place, and the Attorney General of Florida, he communicated to the field that they didn't necessarily have to comply with the injunction. So the Attorney General was held in contempt of court, and just a few days ago, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to stay Florida's request. They wanted to continue enforcing this law until the substantive case was decided. So we did win. The law right now is not enforceable because the injunction is in place. That is a really big win for our community, because walking out this door, anyone who looks like, perceived, accent discrimination, any way, shape, or form, can be targeted and accused. So there was massive amount of discrimination that would fall under this law. So it's a very big win for us. And I want to share that we do see highlights here, because we have to keep fighting. And it's a pretty big deal if the Attorney General is held in contempt of court. So that brings a lot of visibility to Americans for Immigrant Justice. So I also want to say that we have a rapid response network statewide. You can look up very simple but very important information on there that you can share. The website is raise, RAISE.is, and there's Know Your Rights information, and there's also a hotline for individuals to call. This is important because people need to have attorneys. When somebody else is not there, and you, whether you're an attorney or not an attorney, being there for somebody and being another set of eyes, it's really, really important. So raise.is, and it's not a mistake that it is not a .com. It is hosted in Iceland. It's because we've put this up with a lot of other community partners, Florida Immigrant Coalition, many other partners throughout Florida, provided this resource. If all of our community members, family members, networks are accessing this site, and then all of a sudden it's, well, who is curious about rights for immigrants? This data is available. So whether it's you, whether it's me, who supports immigrants, and are we going to accuse them of supporting immigrants? Supporting immigrants is not a crime. It's not a crime. So we, through a lot of discussion, and I think a lot of other entities looked at this, is the fact that this element of data capture is really important, because, like I said in my example with the CHNB parolees, it's a bait and switch. You've done everything right. You're helping community members. You're accessing information. You're accessing what are constitutional rights. What is wrong with that? So we have to be careful as we move forward, but each one of you can be that person, those eyes and ears for another person, somebody who's going to listen to a story and support an immigrant going through a process. So I want to encourage everyone to engage in that, because there's nothing more important than the aspect of storytelling. And that's, I do want to say that that piece of storytelling is what we're not seeing right now in the media. We're only hearing bad stories, ugly stories, and now stories of individuals being targeted. But who are the individuals being targeted? I don't think that all of you know that every single immigrant in your community is a rapist, is a terrorist, is a drug trafficker. These stories are absolutely untrue. So it's important for us to continue those conversations and elevate all the stories. So I want to say that Americans for Immigrant Justice, with the support of the Green Family Foundation and others, other cultural partners, museums, we are elevating a storytelling campaign and narrative change, because we have to fix this. It's not something we do in 6 months. It's not something we do in a year. We have to invest in what immigrants mean to the United States and what their stories are. And all these stories are incredibly beautiful, really demonstrate a lot of strength. And all of these journeys need to continue to be elevated, and that we need to fix what we've been hearing over the last years. Thank you.
I was going to say, so at the Miami Herald, our core team is 6 reporters, including myself, who covers Haiti and Caribbean, but also does the immigration. And then basically for us, this is a priority. So everybody in the newsroom at some point is doing an immigration story. And we do call-outs. So there will actually be a call-out tonight, and it's going to accompany a breaking story that can't say much about it, I don't want to scoop myself, but it has to do with alligator Alcatraz. But, you know, as journalists, you know, it's what you have access to. So, you know, we like to put names and faces, but we also are not there to do a job for ICE. We're not trying to get anybody deported or say, here's where you go. But we want real stories. We want to be able to show how these policies are affecting people, are affecting families, are affecting students. So I invite all of you here, you know, if you have a particular story or an issue you think that needs to be addressed, please feel free. It's jcharles@miamiherald.com. I will get it to a proper reporter. Because if we don't know, we can't do anything about it, or we can't follow it. And with that, I'm going to open it up to the audience. We've got a few minutes. Yes, go ahead. You're first. Yes, you. Turn around. Yes.
I love that to be next to someone that's also intending to have a question. I just want to say thank you to Matt for putting this together, and for your leadership, Gypsy, when you are able to be vulnerable, it allows other leaders to be vulnerable. Gaby, for your testimony, and for the rest of the panel, really appreciate you. I want to elevate something because I do work in education, and there is the intersection of education and immigration right now. And when we talk about, we obviously are dealing with a crisis, I want to elevate that there is something that folks can also think about that has not happened yet, but that's that Miami-Dade County Public Schools has the largest police force in the nation. They have an $80 billion+ budget, and they have not yet signed on to a 287G agreement. And so that's one mechanism that I'd love to talk to folks about, and how we can be prepared for something like that coming down the pipeline. Because to your point, Gaby, they would use and have used schools and children to find families and parents. My question is, if you want, the way that we think about the word is, if you want to understand how to fix a problem in this world, you have to understand who benefits from this. So what are the underlying economic positions that are creating this environment and culture, and how can we combat? I don't think it's apathy that we're combating. I think it's fear, division, confusion, and greed. Greed. So what's like one way that we can combat those in our communities, and who's benefiting from this, so that we can kind of understand that as important.
Let me take one other question and go around. Oh, wait 1 second. I'll come back to you. You were next, or yes?
You're a hard act to follow, but I will try. It occurs to me that everything you've said, this is a deplorable situation. resolution is too slow. I'm a type A, I don't want to wait for midterms to vote. So I'm looking for something that I can do now. And it occurs to me, Raoul, when you were speaking, that I noticed today that Archbishop Wensky finally, albeit weakly, came out against deportation of immigrants. So it occurs to me, since I'm old enough to remember a time in Newsweek running the God is Dead in the 60s, that wonderful magazine circulated that had such an impact. God is not dead, and believe me, I think we need to use every damn bully pulpit we have. And I would like everyone who goes to some church, synagogue, mosque, to talk to the leader in that organization to say, use that pulpit. Talk about this. Spread the word that this is not, I don't know about you all, but I grew up with do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or my mother saying, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So remember what your mother said, and let's get the religious leaders as well as the political ones to get this going. My idea.
Thank you.
It's very hard for me to swallowing. I'm listening. I was detained in 2013 in Bravo Transitional Center. I tell you who benefits from it. Geo. I couldn't believe I heard the name today. Don't pointing Trump and Trump administration. Then they released me after 13 months. After the two biggest newspapers, Sun Sentinel and Miami Herald. Headline, big letters, Trump said, you cannot fix immigration to spending billions of dollars from taxpayers' money who could spend on hospitals, housing, and schools, and so on. Spending one immigration judge already illegal to determine making decisions over 600, 500 males and 100 females. One judge, I was sitting before I went to the judge and I heard 3. Some of them was trafficking drug. Oh, you trafficking drug, or you smoking this or smoking that. We have them up here. I don't understand that. I'm here 27 years. I cooperate legally with tax ID and employee identification number, legally several multiple businesses. I'm still illegal. However, I gained a Washington, D.C. legal service agency phone number. And they give me several phone numbers because, believe it or not, I was only a passenger to heading to Sarasota to my Hungarian annual festival. And I put my car down because I don't pay my insurance. My insurance was expired. And I'm like, I'm not driving my car with international driver license and only with expired. If I drove my car that day, I'm not here. I'm not here. And I have the success, and I have a good karma, or have good guidance, however you name it, but I'm here. And they closed my case as a prosecutorial discretion. I can give you more story for the Miami Herald. And permanent deportation, permanent cancellation of deportation. The ICE chief executive officer in downtown Miami, the Beach Immigration Court, after 3 months they released me. 1 year, they don't even give me a temporary driver license. In this heat, I was walking, catching bus, no money for Uber. I had a cleaning business. When the ICE officer released me, Mr. Abodak, are you not happy? When they released me from the detention center. And I told him, you know, my mind is spinning. It's super speed because before you guys drag me here, I have a legal cleaning business outside. Every 2 weeks, every week, residential, and commercial. You don't even give me a temporary driver license until they close my case. You're sending me out to the immigration building to fight my case. And when they close my case after a year, 3 times I just go to the court, they close my case permanently, nobody tell me where to go. Go back to ICE, they talking to me like a dog. I'm standing outside at 150 degrees, not even shade. In America, in Miramar. That's where I left my loved ones in Hungary. I came to visit and I overstayed by chance and by choice to making my freedom here. But I still didn't give up. Even when Biden was the president, I was planning to lead this country. But I gave 4 years to him. And I have faith. And don't pointing Trump fighting a lot. You just don't know for what. Go and Google it, Freemasons. They have a plan before you're born. Not even about this country, but the world. We need to keep hands together and protest and protest. More people we gain, the stronger we get.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share that, before they started the criminalization of the immigrant, they started in the schools. And I think that, we forgot that part. They have, teachers that were fired, and professors that lost their job. And then that was one of my case because I defended the celebration of Black History Month when it was legal at the time. And I think that, for me, is that we have to think about, and I think that you guys made reference that is, we cannot talk about what is happening in a level that people will be afraid. But I think that, we are afraid because it's not a dictatorship, but, we're dealing also with fascism. And I think that then people are not willing to understand that. And then that, yes, they started with the immigrants because then Trump started to disappear children in the first government that he had. So the disappearance that they're doing now is at adults, then they're amplifying the amplification of the policies that he had before. And I think that when we're talking about monetizing, so then those people then that they put in those detention centers, somebody is paying for.
Oh, making money.
They're making money. And I think then that we have to question then that we can become a commodity that could be sold because we are different. And then when those people that they are the other, the traditional other, then who will be then moving out or selling out? So I think then that we have to be very mindful about that in some of the practice that Trump is using is connected to whom? To Hitler. I don't know if you have listened that into, and then if you're older enough then that you remember, but I think that they have a lot of policies that are connected with it. They have a lot of policies that they're using in relation to that. And I think then that it's natural then that people have, I think the type of activism that we planning, we should be think in terms of the new situations that we're doing because it's not the past, it's not the 60s, not the 70s, not the 80s. We're doing something different. We have to be mindful about that in order then that we put the finger in where we need to put it. And it have to be in multiple places because this thing is global. It's not just in the US. We have different reference to that in the whole world.
Thank you.
My name is Judith Echeverria, and I'm with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Miami. Deliberately, hello Raul. We've spoken by phone because the church community, I think, is trying. But I wanted to speak to what you mentioned about, like, why is it that we are where we are? And one of the things, as an educator also, I wanted to say that Miami historically has been very, very my day. I grew up in Kendall, in La Salucena, that maybe some of you know of. But when I was growing up in Miami, I did not come north of the airport. So I had a and that is for our protection. I'm a child of immigrants. And so I did want to lift up this idea that Miami has grown up and grown with a racist kind of foundation that we need to get over. And that's coming from a Latina from down south. You know, I was not allowed to go to Overtown. You know, my parents, you know, they're traditional, God rest them, their soul, my mother. But it is something that I don't think we talk about. And the churches are clearly segregated by choice. So how do we overcome that? I don't know, but I'm here to invite you to this, my dying church, which is shrinking and shrinking because it's primarily white folks. And so I'm there trying to reach out and trying to spread the word that we are not Christian, because Christian now also has a bad name, you know, for some communities, especially in the rest of the country. Maybe not so much with the immigrant communities. Our immigrant communities still want to be Catholic and still want to be Christian. But the rest of the country who voted in that Gallup poll, 80% still want to get rid of immigrants. Those folks.
So they actually they think immigrants are a good thing.
Yeah. They think
Immigrants are a good thing. Yeah.
oh, immigrants
are a good
I
thing.
had
They're
it
good for the
first.
country.
Oh, that was so depressing. I'm glad I got it backwards.
No, but I think one of the things that everybody here said today, and what's clear is that no one is immune from this. I mean, we used to have wet foot, dry foot, and the Cuban Adjustment Act, but even Cubans are being sent away. They're being sent to South Sudan. I mean, that division that was created by law, by immigration law in this country, it started with, you know, Haitian refugees, because we created the modern detention center. They started detaining arriving Haitians, and that's how we got to the Gitmos and the Chromes, because they started with the Haitians while they were releasing others. That is now being erased with what's happening here. In terms of unless you're a South African, everybody's in the same boat. And I don't know if that has actually hit home to anybody that's right there, but everybody is in the same boat. And I think that the Hispanic community is now starting to wake up to that, because when you look at Doral, that overwhelmingly voted for President Trump, that overwhelmingly said, hey, ship those, you know, those criminals away, or you're in middle America. What you're now hearing from people is saying, well, I thought he was only going to go after the criminals. And when you look at the numbers, the people who are being arrested and sent back are not the criminals. There are people like this young lady who was picked up in Utah, and her information was shared on a Signal group, who had no criminal record. There are mothers who are going in and doing what they're supposed to do to check in ICE, and as they're walking out of immigration court, they're basically being arrested, some with their children in their hands, some where their children are being sent for, or they're being shipped off without their kids. I think that is the reality that is happening today. So whatever divisions that people think that exist, you might as well throw that out the window. Because if you're an immigrant, anybody can get picked up. When I travel, somebody mentioned about, you know, traveling back to the US. My boss texts me all the time. Let me know if you get through immigration. Let me know how it goes. Like I said, I'm not doing it on my phone. But we might have to keep you in Chrome for a few days to write a story to. But that is the reality. You know, you come back into this country today, US citizens down here, green card holders and visitors are in the yellow line. Meaning you're going to get tighter scrutiny than somebody who's a U.S. citizen, but you don't know where it's going to take a turn. Yes. Leonie?
Sorry.
Leonie.
So the question I had, you know, as you all shared, you know, something I think about often is that concentration camp that was created in the Everglades. I refuse to call it alligator Alcatraz, that was just mentioned, because I also feel that's very dehumanizing. It reduces what it actually is. And something I think about that was said, especially by our governor, and the like, is the fact that that is out in the middle of nowhere. And you know, I even heard my mom, you know, like 65-year-old Haitian lady explain, you know, hey, if a hurricane comes, like was to happen to those people, that's very scary, and it's very dehumanizing to think about individuals who not only look like your neighbors, but your family and your friends, etc. And really what I wanted to ask was that the rate at which that was established is very terrifying. What can we do to stop that? Because I quite literally heard that from like hanging out with a climate organization. Like they told me they went to a public meeting, they heard about it, and I said, what? And then the next thing I know is I hear about it on the radio, I read about it in Miami Herald, and now it's here. And I've been here my whole life. I don't recall anything like being built that fast ever.
That's why rain on the person.
Yeah, and like someone just said, yeah, they repurpose, all these things, but again, that I cannot recall anything being built or whatever that fast. And like, how do we stop that? I know legislatively that's gonna take forever, but yeah, how do we stop that? The right way, I guess.
Leonie?
I want to just ask something that you asked why we haven't been active as a nation. I think that we've been active, but internally. We've been meeting, we've been, rebuilding trust. It's good to be active in this space. As leaders, we have to build trust. Remember that most of us have been active with our social service agencies. And for an organization like Sunlight that serves 18,000 a year, you have to be careful about not placing your clients in jeopardy. And so being active takes a different feel. We also began over a year ago, we started to meet nationally with organizations serving Haitians, all the smaller organizations, more newer communities. And we're also playing here in South Florida a critical role in supporting these new organizations. Some of them in the eye of the storm, whether it's Ohio, whether it's Indiana. We are, standing in solidarity with those who are just starting, where we started 50 years ago, and we're also playing an important role in standing in solidarity with them. So I just want to, point out that everything is in the open because we have to be somewhat invested about some of the things that we have.
Thank you. So, main questions for what can you do and who's benefiting? And so, Gaby, I'll start with you, and then we'll come back.
So I don't think there's one reason, right? You look at Donald Trump, and he just wants to be the one that says, I deported the most amount of people. I actually heard from members of his administration that that's what he wants. He wants to be Obama's record of over 3 million people deported, and you hear it, right? You hear that there was a $1,000 people quota, 3,000, and now Homan has said that there's 7,000 people that they have to arrest a day, right? And so we're looking at that to get to 3 million people, which I think they want a lot more. Then I look at Stephen Miller, and Stephen Miller really believes that people that look like us should not be in this country. He wants to replace, and they talk about replacement theory, and they're very open. They're not hiding this. This is why they're saying we don't want birthright citizenship. This is why they're talking, if we really listen, they are asking and saying, we want to take away your wealth. We want to take away your properties. We want to take away everything that you have built. We want to do away with the 60 million Latinos that are in this country that have been here since before this country was here, right? They want that. So I don't necessarily think it's just one particular thing. There are many opportunists, like the FIU Foundation guy, who is the one that got the contract to build that in record amount of time and took away from tax dollars from FEMA, right, to be able to build that. And there was no restrictions. It was just build it, right? Who cares about the environment? Who cares about the people and the conditions? And this is what I think we really also have to focus. sometimes we start debating these things, and we get lost in that debate. Who, and excuse my French, fucking cares? It's about human beings. We talk about it as legalities. Who created a crime or not? Every single human being, regardless of what they did, deserves due process. That is, at the end of the day, bottom line. It's not also about who's going to pick our oranges and who's going to be doing the construction. Hey, those people are parents. They have their children of some man and a woman, right? So at the end of the day, we need to stop the debate and just realize that we are dehumanizing people, and that it's not just about immigrants. Let me tell you, the people that I really am afraid that they're going after is the trans community. It is journalists, right? And there's a lot of white people who are going to also get caught in this, and even with their money and their privilege. Because if they're going after Harvard and law firms and people and members of Congress, we have to wake up and realize that this is about human beings. This is what we saw in World War II. It didn't matter. It did not matter if you were a Jew who was a Nazi. It didn't matter to them, right? So people want to subscribe to these things and think that they're going to side with the oppressor and be safe. Wake up, right? So I do think that, yes, there are certain people, and there's an array, right? We all said it. It's the racism, it's the xenophobia, it's the greed, it's the desire to be this narcissist man who wants to be the best or whatever, right? And be feared and act like a king. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is that this is affecting people, human beings, and it doesn't matter who they are, where they come from, what they've done, right? We have to stand up and fight back.
Gaby's perspective there to remind us about the danger of this growing immigrant industrial complex, right? All of these individuals, firms, companies who are getting ready to profit off of the pain of immigrant communities, right? But I want to remind you also that this didn't just happen. It didn't happen overnight. This has been, and I want to remind you of our history, of our country's history, right? From Reconstruction, right? To Jim Crow era, to the Civil Rights Movement, to the most recent Black Lives Matter movement, until this emerging movement that we're trying to fuel, which is Immigrants Make America Great kind of movement, right? At every turn in these movements, there's been a backlash against the progress made by the individuals who were the primary actors in each of these time periods, right? So in Reconstruction, all of the Black legislators that this country welcomed, right? The Congress people were ridiculed, were made to look like they didn't belong. They were made to look like they didn't know what they were doing, and so this continued, right? Up to, of course, the Jim Crow era and the Civil Rights Movement. Every community, every Black community where progress was being made, where Black people were making it, where businesses were being built, communities were thriving, what did we see? We saw some people become upset by that, be upset by that Black progress, and be made to believe that the Black progress came at the expense of their own progress, and so that unleashed, the burnings in Rosewood and Delaware and all of the other places in this country where we know that these things happen, right up until the police violence that's been unmasked during the Black Lives Matter movement. And so again, these things don't happen by accident. If we're students of history, we understand that there's a movement afoot And every generation has its role in making sure that they understand the movement and understand how to stand up and push back against those forces. And so I think this is our moment. This is our moment to reiterate that immigrants, in fact, make this country great. What are we? A nation of immigrants. Our Statue of Liberty is the most iconic image around the world, right? That speaks to our values of being humanitarians, of welcoming the underdog, of welcoming the tired, the poor, and the wretched, and all of that stuff. We need to remember that we must stand for those values. Because if we look back in our own histories, each and every one of us, except those of us who are maybe second generation immigrants, we know that there's an immigrant in our history. There's someone who came to this country, sometimes legally, sometimes documented, but always, always unwanted. Always unwanted. Let's remember that. Let's assume that history, let's recognize that history, and let's work to make sure that future generations don't have to deal with this mess. Thank you.
I had this conversation at church, real conversation. This person was telling me, well, I understand that they deport the criminals. That's okay, but women and my grandmother and people, family people who have been working here for years, that is not right. Resist the temptation to accept that violating due process for anybody, anyone is right, is not right. Once we accept that you can violate due process for someone, anyone, you are giving up. You are obeying in advance. You are saying, it's okay that you do it to me, dear leader. Resist that idea. And then, I remember during the first term of Donald Trump, our friends from Catholic Legal Services tell me that the issue that most people came up asking help with was setting up a power of attorney for their kids in case they were detained and they were separated. This is happening now in steroids, and we have seen it. So this is my humble, really modest suggestion to everyone here tonight. Make a plan. Make a plan for yourself or for your neighbor, or help someone to make a plan that if you know someone may be at risk of detention and deportation, because they will come up for them, they will come up for us. And when that happens, if you don't have a plan, you're lost. So you need to have a trusted immigration attorney or nonprofit that will be able to provide the service on your speed dial. I'm dating myself here with speed dials. You need to have these in your numbers, in your directory. And that person, that entity needs to know that you're going to call, and they should be able to respond in a dime. So make a plan. Who are you going to call? Who is going to support you? Where are you going to find food? Where do you have emergency shelter? Because when they come for someone, if you don't have a plan, then at this time you are lost. Make a plan.
Attorney about that, but I'm going to give her the last word, and then I want you also, what happens if you're detained? You can add that advice to me also. What do you do if you just got detained?
I say you call the Americans for Immigrant Justice hotline. It's posted in the detention facilities. Unfortunately, we don't think it's posted at the Everglades concentration camp right now, but it is posted in the facilities. That's a good place to start. I can't emphasize more access to counsel. I really want to mention, this is a little bit off topic, but we are talking about profiting off of people. I want to, if you don't know, Immigrants right now are getting fined if they overstayed their removal order. They're getting fined per day. People are getting notices that they owe millions of dollars for being here. And I can't not tie that to people have businesses, people have properties that have increased in value in the state of Florida. This is all tied to the fact that people's property is gonna start getting confiscated because they owe these fake fees.
Yes.
So we have to be careful about this and be watching this really carefully. If people's property and their children are being snatched from them, again, this is not about immigrants, it's not us and them. It is also citizens. And every single day, families in Florida, families in the United States are suffering from family separation. This is not a border crisis. This is today, every day, family separation. So when we talk about powers of attorney, we have to look at that with care. There are a lot of people on the landscape looking out there to take advantage of vulnerable people too. So these powers of attorney, whether it's property, whether it's children, we have to be really careful with it, but there has to be plans in place. But the deportation process, individuals have to find counsel. Not everyone's going to be able to defend themselves because of where we are right now and how the administration is handling things. So the mechanisms we knew to reopen removal proceedings are almost non-existent now. The conditions are so poor that people just want to leave, or they wake up, they're in the middle of the night, they're transported somewhere, and they're grateful. They're in Mississippi or Louisiana. They're not in South Sudan. They're not in El Salvador. And so this kind of mental chaos and this cruelty that is being placed on people, being shipped from here to there to other spots, with the specter of being deported to a third country, is really terrifying. So people are afraid to fight their cases as well. But if they don't have a deportation order, they will be provided a process so long as they engage in that process and be able to see an immigration judge. Some of those protections are being chipped away at in the plans and what's happening, but that's how we know it, that's the legal framework we know it, that individuals can defend themselves before a judge so long as they don't already have a deportation order.
Okay, go ahead, before we wrap up.
Hi, my name is George Richmond, and I'm part of Human Rights Watch, along with Carol Lang and Nina. I'm a Jewish woman who is afraid to wear a Jewish garb. I am afraid to put a tie around my neck. I am afraid to be known as a Jewish woman in our environment. But what I wanted to say to you all, I want to apologize to Stephen Miller. I'm being very serious. One of the philosophies and theories of Judaism is welcoming the stranger. You can look it up, it's number one. We welcome the stranger. He, in my mind, is responsible for a lot of the anti-Semitic actions that are going on in this country. We have not discussed that tonight. It's kind of the elephant in the room. But I wanted to say, I personally despise this man and his philosophies of anti-immigration. I think I really want to sincerely apologize to you as a Jewish person for this man's horrible influence on our society. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not Jewish, but thank you because I keep on thinking, how can a Jew do this? Anyway, I do have Jewish family. I'm Cuban, and my parents came before the revolution. I was 3 years old, and they used to come and work, and go back to Atlanta, back and forth. They used to work. But when I learned how to read, and I learned how to read English very quickly, very young, there were signs that said no blacks, no dogs, and then they added no Cubans. Puerto Ricans. So, and you can look that up. Am I remembering correctly? But they said, so, yes, this is a country, wonderful, has a lot of wonderful things, but it also has a very strong history racism, of discrimination. And in my opinion, and I'm not a historian, but I worked in documentaries, I'm actually a visual artist, I worked in documentaries, so do a lot of research. It's doing to itself what it has done to other countries, especially in Latin America. Because we know it backed up Pinochet in Chile, it backed up the different dictatorships, and especially in Latin America. So it's always a struggle. It's just that for some reason, and I'm so disappointed in human beings, for some reason the pendulum now is in the other extreme. And I'm not saying, the Democrats were great, although I voted Democrat, but I think the pendulum now, you mentioned it, is, And Cuba, why? Because it's the Cold War. That's the reason. That's why the reason. I mean, I was never a refugee, my family was not a refugee, but that's the reason we were privileged as a group, because of the Cold War. So anyway, all this history, thank you also so much. You mentioned, I know American Immigrant Justice, I've done volunteer work with you, thank you. All of you, thank you.
All right, I'm not going to keep you guys very long. I just want to say thank you very much. And I think the concluding message, there are lots of messages, but I think the concluding message is that we're better than that. This community is unique because we all make it unique. And if you've lived in Miami for more than 2 years, it's because you like living in Miami. Not everybody likes living in Miami. And I think that is our asset, and that's what we bring to the table. So I want to thank you all for coming out on a Friday night. This is a full room, but you can go all night with this discussion. Thank you, Green Space Miami.